Fresh and
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. And today we are joined by a bud that goes by the name of DMArmada, aka Stephen Cookus, who is a great bud. And this is the second time for him to join us, and we're going to have a great chat and really get into what happened over the weekend at Nats. It was a wild weekend. We're going to say goodbye to a certain hero, which I'm sure you already know. And we're going to talk about what the implications are for this Nats weekend going into the rest of the season and then into Bright Lights and beyond. So we're going to have a good time, and I'm really excited. But before we get to all that, I do want to shout out to the Patreon, which you can find in the show notes. It helps us keep the lights on, the mics hot. It's a great way to support the show, a little bonus content, etc., etc. Check out the YouTube. Bud Rush Bellow on most Wednesdays, though, you know, it's getting to the busy season right now, but we're going to try to keep it going. Maybe shift schedules a bit. We will see. But on top of all that, we do have the Buds Discord, which you can find in the show notes as well. And if you're listening to this on any audio platform, give us a little rate and like and whatever. Spotify has a little 5-star thing there. And we have a lot of great things to talk about. And hopefully we have time for Charmer at the end. Who knows? You know, this could be the episode when Charmer hops onto the mics and talks to me, right? We don't know though. So stick around to the end. And without further ado, please enjoy the show. All right, we are here with DMArmada, aka Stephen Cookus, a friend, a bud, and a now returning guest, which is very exciting. And we're gonna have a great episode, and we're gonna talk about what happened over the weekend. We're gonna catch up with Stephen, and we're gonna see how he's doing. So, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Thomas Fresh. Now, here's the thing. I need you to understand something, everyone that's watching. Tommy said, "Hey, do you want to be on the podcast?" And I said, on one condition, that he has to agree that Skittles are better than M&Ms.
Wait a second.
He has to agree right now on live air. This is the moment where he has. No, I didn't say that. No, what I said was that on one condition, that we have a fantastic time. So I have looked very sparingly at the show notes because I'm trusting you with my time, and I'm ready to have a fantastic time. Let's do this thing.
Well, I got bad news for you, Steven. All the show notes are just Skittles slander. So
what? And with that, I'm out of that. We're done. Skittles slander.
No,
this is absurd.
No, to be fair,
Skittles.
Now for those of you who don't know at home or wherever you're listening, there was a tweet. And it was is Skittles better than peanut M&Ms, or which one's better? And obviously, if you could tell that Steven fell on the side of Skittles, and
I mean, what really had happened was that Flake decides to make random, just out of the blue calls on camera at these events that we go and do commentary for, and he just out of the blue decided to just completely just demean me for enjoying Skittles, and said some very slanderous things, as you put it. And I'm not letting it go. I'm not forgetting. I'm not gonna let that go. But no, hopefully these show notes are not all Skittles slander. Good.
No,
I don't even see the word Skittles in them.
To be fair, you know, I'm a peanut M&M fan, but I don't hate Skittles. It was pretty close. I mean, if somebody gives me Skittles, I'm not gonna say no. You know, Skittles
well, there
are
you
great.
go. See, that's because you are a fine gentleman.
I am, and as the listeners know, Flake and I are feuding right now, so obviously I'm going to fall on whatever other side of any argument that he is presenting to the world. But Flake, if you're listening, come on, man. But We are going to talk a little bit about Flesh and Blood, this game we happen to really enjoy this episode, and we're gonna, really have fun, and we'll stay away from the candy talk, and maybe till the end we'll see how it goes. But first of all, Steven, you're cooking as always on YouTube and commentary, everything. You do such a great job. You post a video, people pay attention. It's awesome. So I wanted to ask you, well, first of all, how's the channel going? Because I always like to touch in with people in their content, and I just want to see how you feel about it from your perspective, because we obviously see what's going on from here on our own computer screens, and I wanted to see how you felt. Also, I wanted to point out that your thumbnail game, and we'll get to that later, was prophetic last week. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. That's true, right? That's a pretty good call. There was someone that left a comment down below. They're like, "This is clickbait, and I don't appreciate it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they were like, "You couldn't have put a question mark." I said, "Yeah, this isn't clickbait. I had to pick a topic that I thought would make for a good thumbnail, so that I could therefore put it on the thumbnail, so you knew what you were watching." And there were like 5 topics in that video. So I just picked the one that I personally was rooting for the most, and it turns out it came true.
It sure did.
But yeah, they wanted a question mark instead. So I was like, I mean, I'm not going to argue. I guess a question mark would be fine, but I don't like the question mark, so I didn't put it on there.
Sure.
Problem solved. Now the channel's going really well. I feel like, and this is like total personalness, as far as like analytics and that sort of thing, the channel is improving and growing and that sort of things. But as far as a personal thing, I very much noticed that over the past 6 months, it was very difficult to maintain the schedule that I was putting out videos at, the content like schedule that I was putting out videos at, and do commentary and make sure that my wife, who's the like runner of my, like the controller of my house while I'm away, and just like the person that I entrust with, obviously the well-being of my kids, and who I trust implicitly and love dearly, was actually in a good mental space, and of course my kids being in a good mental space. So I was starting to like feel the sort of stressors of that coming out of the last school year and into the summer. And so I tried to do a little bit better job of really managing my time that I spent on videos, and also managing just overall time with my kids. And I feel like I've found a better time balance, work-life balance, if you will, over the past few months. And in some cases, it's led to less videos. Like, for example, the past 3 or so weeks, there have only been a handful of videos that I have released. And that's just partly because I'm swinging back into the school year, and I'm like working 12-hour days at school trying to get things back to normal. But it's also just because there have been moments where I've actively chosen to dedicate my time to my wife, or dedicate my time to my kids, and make sure that they're feeling, like appreciated and like supported. So I feel like I've started to find a really nice balance of just making sure that I'm still putting out content that people want to watch and that people enjoy, and that the, vast majority of my audience really gets value from, while also making sure that my personal like mental health and my kids and my wife are all sort of looked after as well. So I think we're starting to get there.
Well, that's really good to hear, because I think anybody can agree work-life balance is huge, and all this stuff, and there's also this like weird spectrum, right? Because you can go you can get to that point, and I've gotten there, where you feel like you just got to keep putting something out there, but there's laws of diminishing returns there, right? Because all of a sudden you're putting out stuff that you're just doing it to do it, right? You want to actually have some substance, but then on the other end, you could just not be putting out enough stuff. So it's like finding that weird spot, and then also taking care of your family and all of your other things. But I'm really happy to hear that you've gotten there. But one of the things that have probably made it challenging, but also very rewarding in a way, is you've become somewhat of a road warrior, right? The past, couple months here, doing a lot of coverage at these battle hards and brawls and all these really cool things. And I can imagine it's an awesome experience, but it could also be pretty tough. Those are some long days in those booths.
Yeah, it is. It's tough in a lot of respects. It is really a challenge, but it is something that I have always enjoyed doing. For those that don't know, I started my YouTube channel on commentary. It was commentary in a different sense, in a different game, of course. But I've been doing a YouTube channel for 7 years. I was really passionate about just playing games and then kind of talking them over. And in fact, it's a really good parallel to what if you know the commentator Ethnic Smoke, who did an absolutely incredible job at U.S. Nationals this past weekend. Pankaj did a fantastic job. I felt compelled to reach out to him personally and just tell him how good it was, because I really did think he just out of the park, knocked it out of the park.
Oh yeah.
The same way he started his channel, Ethnic Smoke, and in creating gameplay videos that he then kind of commentated over and talked through his thinking and lines, or just talked from the perspective of both players. That is what I started my YouTube channel with. So for me, it was like, it's one of my favorite things to ever do. It's one of my like, I'm most passionate about creating videos and providing commentary over those gameplay that, we get to watch, because I feel as though I've prepared for like just so long to do that. I am very good at basically just executing at that, I feel. And I feel like I've put a lot of my own time and energy outside of just obviously what I do for a living into getting better at that. And so when I get to go on these trips, I feel like I'm sort of at my best, if you will, or at my most purposeful with regards to being in this space. So it is a blast. It is a lot of talking. It is a long day. It's like 12, 14 hours in front of a camera if it's just me and, Flake going back and forth. So it feels, by the end of it, you feel literally frazzled. Your brain is dead, and people want to go eat dinner at a restaurant, and I want to sit in a hotel room and eat like pizza or wings or something else that's not fundamentally good for me, and watch something on television. But yeah, it's a blast otherwise.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand sometimes. Not because any like bad kind of vibes there, but because it's so long, and sometimes like you gotta make it like really work when you're in the booth so long, and you should, like you gotta have some fun, because if you're just dialed in for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, nobody can do that, right? That's just and I think that you and Flake, although we are feuding, as I said before, I take this with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to pump Flake's tires here. Of course I'm trying to pump Flake's tires. He needs it, damn it. But you guys do a great job of staying dialed in, but also bringing the fun, right? And kind of bringing that kind of nice banter that makes it a little bit more personal, and it feels like I mean, to me it feels like I'm listening and watching my buds play the game, right? And
Exactly. I think that's what we want. Like the two of us, I think that's what we very much want to bring to the table, because there are great commentators across the world for this game that can provide high level commentary, and do so from a position of like authority, if you will. And they can say this is what's the line that could be thinking, and that is 100% valid and super necessary in the just overall booth, in the commentary business in general, right? At the same time, I also feel very strongly that if you aren't watching for the entertainment factor of just the entirety of the broadcast, if the entire broadcast isn't entertaining in some way, shape, or form, then we're losing you. We're missing the point. You're stepping away because the game is over, and I don't want you to step away, because then I don't have as many people to hang out with. And I'm an introvert. I am very good at hanging out with small groups of people, and to me, a stream feels like a small group of people, because you're just all in chat hanging out. And so I like that, and I want people to stay around, and I want people to engage with, the commentators, and I want you to feel like you're part of this, and I want you to enjoy your time just as much as when you're enjoying the game. And so we try to facilitate that, I think, and I think we thread a good line where we can dial up the kind of humor, or we can dial up the wackiness, if you will, but we know how to bring it into a point where it's go time. This is the pivotal moment, or this is the game, and this is the gameplay, and these are the lines. And I think we do a very good job, in my opinion, of threading that line in a way that I would enjoy watching back.
Yeah, no, you absolutely do, and you're totally correct that there's all different styles of commentating. And one of the examples I always like to look at is like, we have. I'm a big NFL fan, right? We have your standard. I was going to say John Madden, but he hasn't been doing it for a while. But your Chris Collinsworth and your Joe Buck and whatever. But then you also have like the Manning cast where Peyton and Eli do some like really silly stuff. And guess what? That pulls numbers too. They both pull numbers
and they're both fun to watch for different reasons, or oftentimes the same reasons. It's just a different flavor.
Absolutely. It's really cool. And you guys have been killing it. And I guess the next question after that though is are there any weekends in the booth on the horizon for you, or is going into the school year kind of like take a step back?
Actually, yeah, we're gonna do Battle Hardened Milwaukee. I'm actually booking after we finish this conversation together. I'm going to book my flights to Battle Hardened Milwaukee. So if you want to come hang out in Milwaukee, it'll be my first time there, and I'm sure the venue is going to be fantastic because it's put on by MinMax, and they just always crush it. So if you want to come hang out, then check that out. I think it's like October 6th through 8th. It's literally the weekend that Bright Lights releases.
Ooh.
So I was talking to Peter of MinMax fame, and he told me that they're going to run like a pre-release on Friday, the night of the release, or like a big release event, I should say. And then the next day is going to be like the Battle Hardened and then the PTI after that. So I'm trying to get in that afternoon so that I can partake in some of the revelry of the release weekend.
Well, those events are always so exciting, right? All eyes are always on those events because, like, we saw it with, was it Chicago or Cincinnati?
Yeah, no, Chicago.
Chicago with Dusk Till Dawn. We got a lot of exciting stuff. Pat Eschke making.
Oh, that one was that was Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Dusk Till Dawn. And then Chicago did Outsiders. So we were actually doing that one. That one was really fun because that was the one where we got new heroes, but we also got like new stuff for Azalea, and Azalea won, and Brody ate a bunch of sandwiches.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a blast.
It's like it becomes like this celebration in a way, which is really cool, and that should be exciting. In Milwaukee, it would be really cool, and glad to see some of the Midwest get some more love. Actually, I was talking to somebody. We need New England. Like, I know I'm Jersey, but like New England needs some love. We haven't had a Boston Battle Hardened or anything like that yet. So if you're listening out there, LSS, give New England a look. We want to get some stuff going on there because I love visiting up there. But speaking of other things on the horizon, you mentioned it, Bright Lights, and I just wanted to get your opinions on it, Stephen, because you have some great opinions, I think, and I respect those opinions.
You want my opinions on it?
Yeah. So this is an all mech set, as we know now. I would say this is, and I've said it before, is arguably the biggest bet that we've seen LSS take, right? This is a big swing. And, we all hope that this swing connects. But I want to hear your takes on it. Like, what are some hopes and hesitations you might have?
I think you hit the nail directly on the head in that it's a big bet of like, okay, we are producing a set that is only supporting, quote unquote, supporting or producing, I should say, class cards and heroes for the mechanologist. Now they have talked about the like, what's it called, expansion slot or the flex slot. We don't know enough about that to be able to talk to it, but we know that the set is a draft set and it is only featuring mechanologist cards, making it really accessible. Now there's an upside and a downside to this, and of course the immediate downside is that if you've never played mech or if you're not interested in playing mech, then this set feels like you're not like really needing to pick it up. It feels like it's a set that you can skip. And that is definitely a downside from the LSS perspective, probably because I'm sure they would love the revenue of people buying it and picking it up. At the same time, it could be a consumer plus, I think, because it gives you the opportunity to maybe not have to invest heavily and then just buy singles, especially if the expansion set has cards in it that perhaps support your class or your hero or maybe even your archetype, for example, right? So in that sense, maybe it encourages you to just buy the singles from the set rather than the boxes itself, which I guess bottom line still kind of supports LSS, which is great because it's encouraging like shop owners and other people to open the boxes and then, try to sell those singles so that you can either make a profit as a store, or you can supply the community that you're looking to, support with singles. So that's a possible downside with some maybe hidden little upsides, but I also feel like the upside to doing this is huge and perhaps in a lot of respects easy for ingratiated players to miss. Because saying to someone, hey, there is a set that I can use to teach you how to play the game of Flesh and Blood, and all you need to do is buy 3 packs, and we're just going to smash them together. And from that, we are going to make a full on deck, and I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about playing the game, is a very easy and alluring entry point. And this is something that LSS I feel like has done a very good job of over the past 4 to 6 months on is providing an easier and easier entry point for new players to jump in and try the game. And when the game is continuing to try and push globally out into the world, making a set that is literally ground zero, 1 class, 3 heroes that do different things with the same card pool and all kind of feature, perhaps we don't know, but feature different ways and different avenues of winning the game. That's very smart for a new player product to sort of be tucked into. And then you look at that combined with the release of the Tolarian Community College collaboration product, which I think is called like Round the Table, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it called Round the Table?
I believe so. Yeah.
And you look at that and you go, okay, so you're giving me the most accessible set to enter into the game of Flesh and Blood, and then you're giving me a collaborative product that has a bunch of what we can assume to be starter deck almost products to kind of run together and try the game out as well. There's almost no reason not to give the game a try at that point and
Yeah.
then just run it forward. And if you don't like it, well, that's fine. You don't have to like it. You don't have to buy any of the products. But if you do like it, well, you have options now. You can either buy more of the product that gets you to build a mechanologist deck, and you can get a really good mech deck going. Or you can branch out and say, I want to try these blitz decks that are all $10 there or $12. They're on the shelf right there. I might as well buy that hero. He looks really cool or she looks really cool. I want to play as that thing. Why does he have blood dripping down his mouth? I have no clue. I got to find out. Why is he holding a hammer? Does he roll 1s or 6s? Probably 1s. I'm going to try it out. And then they pick it up and they try something. So all of these entry points are covered now with a set like this. But it is definitely a big bet
Yeah.
saying, hopefully this set sells well, and if not, we have to take a hit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I think the expansion slot will appease a lot of the current players, right? And you kind of hit on something there with the Tolarian Community College, the Round the Table product, right? That's releasing in a month, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly, I think, but
They say, right?
yeah, so they say, but that will be out for a month. Stores will have it on shelves, right? You say people, they buy the 3 packs and they play some bright lights and maybe they enjoy it. And the first thing they're going to look at is, well, what else should I buy? And you mentioned the blitz decks, but like they would, if these people, these players that are kind of trying it out, know anything about trading card games, they most likely know about Brian, the professor, right? And they say, well, I think I ought to try this, and it seems to be a lot of value from what we've heard. 4 decks, a box, and a playmat for like $70 or something like that. It's not the worst value. So it definitely beats the classic battles side of the spectrum there.
At $50 for 2 decks. Sure.
Yeah, so I think it could be. I'm trying to share the same optimism as you there, Stephen, because the new player thing is not to be dismissed because, well, we need new players. We want new players. That's right. Like that's the whole reason any of us do any of this, right? We want to create content for people who want to get into the game, right? And or who eventually will get to the game. So yeah, no, exciting. Bright lights. Are you excited for it though?
Well, I do want to say this. I do think that, like we said, it is a big gamble because the downside is that players don't enjoy the set as much. And then they look at the release schedule this year and they look at, a set that was really all about the pits, which is cool, but it gave you assassin support, it gave you ranger support, and it gave you ninja support to some degree. But if you're not none of those classes, you don't really care. And then you look at a supplemental set or an expansion set that really was just for the kind of storyline the main storyline of the game right now, and it kind of fleshes out that storyline with Light and Shadow, and it reintroduces Prism, and it introduces Vinset. So you get a new hero that way, and that is a support set in the sense that it gives you the ability to play those old card pools. But for a new player, you may not want to buy into that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at an all mech set, and so the danger is that you look at these releases in 2023, and you go, well, where's the hero that I care about, or the hero that I like? And so I feel like the answer perhaps lies in the expansion slot of this set, and of them maybe giving you some number of spicy cards for your class. And then, of course, after this, it'll depend on where they go from there. Are they going to, give us a set that has, a lot more, support for heroes, or are they going to give us a very specific micro set in that it only supports a class? It's going to be really interesting to see what they do after this set. But to answer your question, I am excited for it, and I do want to see what the third hero is, and I do want to see, how I can build the biggest possible Evo in the world, so that I can have just a giant mech just running through the streets of metrics.
Yeah. Well, and the expansion slot, if that is a hit and that makes sense, and maybe even looking back at Uprising when they moved cold foils to a token slot, opening up this opportunity to do this expansion slot that doesn't affect the limited gameplay, this could be the key to the success going forward. Because I've talked about it before. I don't think you can just do supplemental sets as the game grows, as we go. It's so hard to support every hero, and we were seeing it with Dynasty, and we were seeing it with Everfest, because sure, whatever, swing big, I always use Brute as an example. Swing big, sure, great in Leviathan, but it's a Rhinar card. It's just a 2-for-8, right? And it didn't feel like it really changed much for Levi, because that could have been any other 2-for-6 or 7, But it's going to be harder and harder.
Good, that's really good.
Swing big, yeah, I think so. They should color shift it too. Give us the blue of it that has 6 attack. I just an idea for LSS.
Yeah, throwing that out there.
Yeah, they turned off the video. But
and gone
and gone. But but Bright Lights is exciting. But let's take a step back here and look at Dusk Till Dawn. We're gonna do the fresh faves. We did your general fresh faves when you came on the show for the first time. Now I want to do Dusk Till Dawn specific. So
okay,
starting off, who is your favorite hero? Now, other people have said Leviah or Bolton, but obviously we got 2 new heroes with the new Prism and Vinset here.
In that new set, I like Vinset the best. And I like Vinset the best because it feels like, well, actually, it's very close, because I think both heroes feel like a really fun puzzle to try and solve. But I am leaning towards Vinset because they let me spoil Vinset. So there you go. That's my reason.
That makes sense.
That's the reason.
That's a great answer.
I have there's a soft spot for all the heroes that I've gotten to spoil, and I've been very lucky and very blessed to have gotten to spoil a lot of heroes. I got to spoil Lexi. I got to spoil Arachne and Riptide and Vinset. And if I'm forgetting one, I feel really bad. It's like forgetting one of your children because you spend so much freaking time on those spoiler videos. But no, I have a soft spot for all of those heroes. And so I like the Prism a lot. And I really like the puzzle that Prism provides. But I also like the ability to just play insane turns and try to land crazy combos that you can kind of set up with Vinset. And now that Briar is LL'd and my plans for bringing Fatigue Briar to the calling DFW are shot in the foot, I actually picked up Vinset again today, and I rebuilt the deck, and I was like, okay, where do we go from here? And how can we try weird things? And so that's, I think, where I'm starting to go now, and we'll see what that comes to fruition in any way, shape, or form.
Well, there's going to be a lot of fun things to be had with Runeblade, with Rosetta going, and to touch on the Prism being a puzzle. Brian Gottlieb keeps saying, I know the power of Prism. I want to see it.
I loved that he said that. Like, that to me is one of my favorite statements. Mm-hmm. Like when a game company says, "This is this hero's time to shine," and you're like, that hero?
That one?
That one over there? That's Riptide. What are you saying? Riptide doesn't do anything. Who even spoiled that guy? It was me. I spoiled that guy. I did a really a serviceable Cockney accent for that. No, I like that. I like when it encourages me because I'm one of those people that really enjoys the deck building and the puzzle solving aspect of it. So it encourages me to go back and go, okay, what did I miss? What have I whiffed on? And that's kind of where I'm at with Vincent right now. So is there something that I missed? Is there a way to really push this further than before? And we'll see. I don't know.
I think you're onto it, and I can't wait to see what people do with Vincent going forward now that Briar's gone. But what's your favorite weapon from the set?
Ooh, my favorite weapon. I don't know. I do. Decimator Great Axe. I
Yeah.
love Decimator Great Axe because it just feels like a weapon that you want to try and build around. It's
Hmm.
it's like a weapon that finally feels like it pays off previous cards. And it encourages you to go back to those previous cards, all your axe cards, anything that gives buffs to axes or encourages you to, apply dominate or things like that. It just encourages you to pick the axe up and try it again. So it's like watching a movie and seeing all these teases and then finally getting the sequel where they pay off all the teases. That's what it feels like.
It is really cool too because now, like, both Dorinthia and Bolton can kind of play this axe deck.
Mhm.
And when you sit down and you reveal Dorinthia or Bolton, people just like, okay, this is either Raiden or combo, or this is just Dawnblade, and they sideboard for that. And then all of a sudden, it's maybe the best control deck that what we're gonna have going forward because that axe is crazy good. So it's very cool.
Well, that's why I was going to bring Fatigue Briar to the Calling DFW because everyone has a preconceived notion about what to sideboard and what to expect with Briar. And what you get is people sideboarding incorrectly for a deck that wants to fatigue you and block you out. So that I literally had built just like a block out mass fatigue. Everything blocks for 3 or 4. If you get an embodiment, everything blocks for 4, which is insane. Almost nothing in the deck blocks for 3. You play a lot of the defense reactions, and like you just do that. And people just don't know to play that way. I like to play a different way until like turn 5, and by that point, they've just destroyed like a pitch stack and second cycle chance. And you catch so many people sleeping. It was so fun to play, and I was really rooting to play it. But guess we'll shift it up and we'll play
Well,
Dromai again or something.
the Living Legend format will be fun, right? You'll have a
Maybe.
second chance there. Now, what's your favorite equipment from Dusk Till Dawn?
Hmm. Is Crown of Providence in this set? No, no, it
It
doesn't
is.
exist. It's
It
that one.
is technically, yeah.
No, I think I would pick No, maybe I would pick Dyadic Carapace. Maybe I would pick Dyadic
Oh,
Carapace.
there it is.
I actually traded for Dyadic Carapace at Atlanta. I traded a what did I trade? I traded a couple of things for this exact card because this card is freaking beautiful and it just does everything you want. And in fact, I traded for this so I could play Fatigue Prior. God dang it. What was I thinking? No. It's either that or for me it's Empyrean Rapture because that card is beautiful.
Mhm.
It is gorgeous. It I feel like it does exactly what you'd probably want to do in basically discounting your 2 cost on like the angel side of things to 0 and it just feels really good when you trigger it every time. So it's one of those two, Dyadic or Empyrean Rapture, but definitely up there.
There's some great equipment in the set, so it's a little bit hard to pick. You're naming two great ones. Scowling Flesh Bag, obviously, is one
Oh
of them.
crap! Never mind. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a better option.
That
Dang,
card's
that's a good
insane.
one.
Now, what's your favorite? Oh, and that Soulbound Resolve.
Soulbond Resolve. Yeah,
Oh,
this one's really dirty.
that one.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen do insane work with
I have
Bolton.
them all
Which,
sitting on my desk because I was supposed to put them in a binder. Oh look, here's a cold foiled Decimator Great Axe. Look at
oh
that.
my God,
I can't even see the
Steven,
cold foil.
Steven, this is a
They're just
family
sitting out
show.
here.
Oh
What
my
am I
God.
thinking? Just sitting on my desk, ready for my 2-year-old to come and chew on.
uh, well, finally, we have. What's your favorite non-attack action, attack action? Your run-of-the-mill cards. Something you put in your deck. Card that was printed in this set.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I had not thought about it. It's not Warmonger's Diplomacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. It's not that I don't like Warmonger's Diplomacy. It's just that's not the card that I pick. Um, I think the one I'm most interested to see if it ever gets played is Poison the Well, or is that what it's
Mm-hmm.
called?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Poison the Well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that one's super hilarious, and I don't know if it'll ever see play. It feels very much like a meme, but in the best of ways.
Yeah.
But if I'm just picking like I think my favorite card to like physically play down, it's got to be Deathly Whale because Deathly Whale is the nuts for Vincent.
Oh yeah.
And I said it in a video right when Vincent like kind of was announced and revealed and all that Deathly Whale's just like the uber nuts. And there were some people that were like, "Nah, it's Deathly Delight, the 2 cost that heals you." And I'm like, "Nah, son, you need the rune chance. This is the one." And it turns out it is the one.
It really is. I mean, that
Pretty
card
good.
very, very good, and a lot of great cards in the set. And I think it's going to go down as a great one for Flesh and Blood. But you know what else was great, Steven?
No, tell me.
This past weekend, the first weekend of national season, and it was a banger. I will say that with 100% confidence. We had a ton of nationals going on. I have a list of a bunch of winners, the heroes that won, because all eyes are on the Living Legend leaderboard during these weekends because we have so many tournaments going on. It's not just one big chunk of Living Legend points getting added to the mix. It's just a bunch. So obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about Briar. Charles Dunn won in United States. We got some dashes winning, a couple Dromais. A Dromai won Brazil, I believe. 96 players in a new market. That's very cool. Love to see that.
Well, I'll tell you, I just got a comment on one of my videos this evening about how Fab is actually dead and that no store wants to carry it and that players aren't showing up so they can't fire events. And then they asked if all of that was untrue. Yeah, it is untrue. Yeah, all of that, what that person said is untrue. So I'm not buying that. Sorry. Because apparently 98 people want to, or sorry, 96 people is what you said, right?
Yep.
96 people want to show up in Brazil where the game hasn't officially fully like hit the market in the best of ways. So yeah, I don't know. Not sure I'm buying the Fab is dead meme.
Yeah, it's a little tough. You know, sure, some markets might be struggling, but it seems
That's
like
TCG,
most trading card games, you know, whatever. Sometimes a store is a Magic store, right? And
dude, it's regionalized, man. Everybody knows that there's you can't anecdotally provide regional data and say that the game is dead. You have to look further than that. And anyone that doesn't do that and then tries to tell you a game is alive or dead, is just trying to sell you. Sell you on something.
Well, thank that person for the view and the comment. Help the old algorithm. You know, they're helping Flesh and Blood thrive with that comment. Now,
that's right.
Yes.
I like that mentality.
Yes. Now, we had a couple dashes win. 2 Kanos won over the weekend. Reinar in Finland. Dorinthia in Taiwan. We had a Bolton win in Slovenia. Very small.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a very small tournament, but still a win. A W's a W.
Yeah, man.
And gotta love it for Bolton. Had some Icelanders win. A lot of Lexi. That's going to be a big topic here. But the biggest story coming out this weekend is, of course, as I mentioned at the top, is Charles Dunn sending Briar home to the Living Legend realm in an oddly poetic win without Rosetta Thorn, but with a Reaping Blade. And you mentioned it before, the Fatigue Briar is a real thing, and who better to do it than Charles Dunn, who is a great control player. And it was awesome. So what do you make of this? Did you expect this Fatigue Briar list that you had just said you wanted to bring to the Calling DFW to make a big splash in this tournament?
Well, I'd hoped it didn't, because the weekend before was the first time it had kind of resurfaced, and that was in Battle Hard in Atlanta, and we put it on stream like twice in the Swiss rounds, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do, and I was like, oh crap, no, now people are gonna play this. This deck is like done very well for me thus far, and if this deck actually does have legs in this format, then there's a real chance someone might take this and win 2 points. Little did I know it was going to win 100 points
Yeah.
the very next weekend. But you know what? It's interesting too because it's not as though like Charles Dunn watched that stream and went, you know what? I'll play that deck, and then like a week later he built the deck. No, like there have been people on Twitter that have been kind of pointing out that he's been talking about this and I guess working on the deck for a lot longer than that. And to his credit, longer than I had even been thinking about the deck and working on my version of the deck and the two versions, mine and his, and even the one that was in top eight at Battle Hard in Atlanta, were all different in a variety of ways, which is really cool to see because I was having solid success with the deck as I was testing it and planning it, playing it a very specific way for full fatigue, and just making use of the incidental rune chant here and there, or the incidental, I should say, embodiment here and there. And then you look at the other two lists, and they're leaning far heavier into the making an embodiment every single turn with an attack like a generic go again, scar for a scar, or it's like a big raging onslaught. They're like their goal is to make one almost every turn with the way that the deck is built, and both were successful. And so, yeah, I was actually quite worried that one of the decks would just pop off, and it would become popular enough that someone would like win a nationals with it, like maybe a smaller nationals in general, and just kind of like take it to the house. It turned out it was like US Nats. So yeah, I was expecting it to do well, but I if you would have asked me to place a bet being in Vegas, like
Yeah.
here, bet on whether or not Fatigue Briar will win. I mean, after playing it a bunch, I felt good about its chances of like doing well in a tournament setting where players can't, like really effectively build around the problem. But I don't know if I would have put down money on that it would win.
Yeah, it's tough, and like it kind of really speaks to the, I guess, the real prowess of Charles Dunn, right? He's a great player
100%.
and brings it and just and plays masterfully throughout the top eight and the Swiss rounds,
Yeah,
and really getting it there because you know what? Hey, someone could have brought it and done really well in constructed and tanked the drafts. Right.
exactly.
So it's a very interesting deck. I remember the first time I saw it pop up was, gosh, the last calling in Indianapolis. I believe Dagan White was playing it there.
Yeah, he was playing a version of it, which I didn't know until this morning on Twitter. I don't think I actually got to catch any of his games on that stream. And in fact, I forget who put that stream on. Was that put on by Savage Feats at the time? Man Sam?
Yes, I believe so. That was Savage Feats. Yes, if I
And
remember
so
correctly.
yeah. And I feel like I remember the stream, but I don't remember any of those games. That was the meta where we had Oldham and like super hard fatigue Oldham, and then people were playing Icelander with like methods of like Imperial Warhorn and stuff like that, right? I think that was
Mhm.
that meta. Okay, so I
Yeah.
must have just missed the games where he showed up, but I thought that was crazy that he was playing the deck back then
I,
too.
I might, you might have to correct me here, but or I don't know. Savage Feast wasn't. First of all, I don't think Savage Feast was a thing yet. But Ethan was there
Right,
helping with
Ethan
the
was doing his
casting.
thing. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, I think Charles Dunn either won or got second in that
Yeah, on
tournament
Oldham.
on Oldham.
Yeah, big Oldham player, yeah. I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
I watched that, yeah.
Which is kind of a nice little circular kind of thing going on with
Right.
with like him winning with Briar, and that's when I remember it first popping up. And obviously Dagan White, great player, great deck builder, kind of someone to bring it to the table there now. But the funny thing about it is we now lose Rosetta Thorn. Rosetta Thorn has a lot of issues around it, or at least supposed issues. It is a very pushed card, and I think
Yeah.
in my opinion, it is a very good card, and it is certainly pushed. But I think people miss the problem, and the problem was always that it was not elemental, at least in my opinion. If you limited it to just Briar, I think it would have felt a little better, because there was times, and I see Vincettes playing it, and I think that's such a flavor fail when you have the whip. I mean,
Sure.
and then Viserai was playing it, and Viserai was very good at one point with it, And
Yeah.
but now that it's gone, will the rune blades be hindered or set free from the shackles that this weapon kind of held on the class for the past 2 years?
No, they'll be hindered. Yeah, I think they'll 100% be pulled down a little bit because the benefit of making a very powerful weapon not specific to a talent is that all heroes in that class benefit from its existence.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be annoying when the card is really good and really efficient, but fundamentally it makes Viserai a better hero when you can swing the blade for 2 and 2 at the end of your turn alongside of, 6 rune chants or whatever like that, because you just played another busted card in Revel and Runeblood, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is functionally better than the alternatives in all way, shape, or form. Now, does it, like you say, does it unfetter you from the deck building restrictions of trying to play towards that because it is the best possible option? Sure, but does that make you a better hero for it? No, it doesn't. And so I do believe that, until we see some supplemental card in, I guess the expansion slot, I do think that the just majority of rune blades have to find another way of, kind of doing the same thing, just not quite as good. And so Viscerai probably goes back to Nebula Blade and feels fairly comfortable with Nebula Blade swinging the blade for 4 and making a rune chant on hit and paying the extra for it. And Vincent had some opportunities to play the Thorn, of course, and it made very good use of it in Blitz, but overall probably didn't really run Thorn in CC to the same degree that you would in Blitz. So
Mm-hmm.
really, it's kind of irrelevant for her anyway, unless you're playing a very specific type of version of Vincent, which I did mess around with, and it's fine, it functions. But I do think that, like, yes, because that card goes, Runeblade fundamentally takes a small step back. And is that a bad thing? If you like Runeblade,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. But otherwise it's relatively, punchless.
For sure, for sure. It's also worth noting that Reaping Blade does fit the same math on the attack, right? One for
Yeah.
or one
One
for
for
the
3.
resources anyway, but and one for 3. That's always 3, which is nice. On the hands that kind of clunk up for you, but. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of people are going to be happy to see Rosetta Thorn go, and I think that maybe LSS can take a step forward and learn from it, right? And I think that's like the biggest thing. But Briar living legending, if that is a verb,
It is now.
it was the biggest story from the weekend. However, Steven, I think we cannot ignore Lexi's output across the globe because
I thought you were going to talk about the 2 Kano wins.
the 2K, well, the 2K, I mean, like,
That's
hey,
amazing. Come on now.
Kano's going to sneak some wins. Kano's always going to be sneaking wins until he's
Kano
gone.
does Kano things, man.
Yep. And in the hands of a great Kano player, there's no doubt that they're going to win. But Lexi, a lot of pros saying Lexi was the best deck, and I don't think you can argue that. Really, it has the best matchup spread, and she gained 242 points this weekend. Yuki Lee Bender winning the Calling Las Vegas definitely helped that. So a whopping, I think, 100 points there. But also it's winning across the globe. And this puts her in the upper 600s on the leaderboard, right? At least from my rough math, which could be wrong, but I think it's true. Now, rough math also tells me that we have almost 500 points left to dish out this Nat season with the remaining countries that still need to play. Are we seeing a strong chance to see not one, but 2 Tales of Aria heroes leave us this season? Also, it's worth noting that Icelander's relatively close as well, within 200 points right now.
Yeah, and Icelander's the best deck in the format too, and I think that's going to pick it up. So I'm gonna stake my claim on that. I think Lexi is just overplayed. I
Okay.
think fundamentally Lexi is just the most played deck by the largest of margins and probably the easiest. I know that's not true. It's not the easiest deck to play, but I feel like perhaps it's the easiest deck to win a tournament with because it's so pushed power level wise.
Mm-hmm.
It is perhaps the strongest deck, but I don't know if it's the best deck to win a tournament. But you know what? My opinion is irrelevant because when you look at the data, Like you said, let's see: France, Lexi; Italy, Lexi; Denmark, Lexi; Lithuania, Lexi; Norway, Lexi; Portugal, Lexi; Vietnam, Lexi. When it comes down to it, what's winning? Well, Lexi is, and whether or not you think that that's because it has the best time or the easiest time, or whether or not you think it's just because the deck is so in the zeitgeist of the community, like everyone's living rent free with Lexi in their head, and so they're playing it. It's irrelevant because she's gaining the points. But yeah, I do very much think that it is quite possible that Icelander and Lexi go in the same cycle. I do think. How many more do we have? I think there was like 33, right? Isn't that what the number was? I feel like that number's just floating around in my head for some reason.
I don't know exactly how many. I counted up the amount of points left to gain. I think it was like 490, close to 500 there, right? And it is a lot of chances. Now, there's also worth noting that maybe, and you never know how people are going to turn around, and we saw it with the original Briar list, right? When Matt Folks won UK Nats, all of a sudden US Nats was filled with Lightning Briar.
Right.
Do we see a lot of this fatigue Briar on the last hurrah next week and the week after in these Nats?
I think that's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought about that, but that is a very real possibility that we see players pick that deck up going into the national season, because I do actually think that it feels quite, I don't want to say quite comfortable. It feels comfortable enough, especially if you're well versed enough in fatigue. It feels comfortable enough into Lexi that you probably feel fairly favored if you know the deck really well and you know when to block and what to block versus Lexi. And there are certain heroes that do feel bad from the fatigue Briar side of things. Like, for example, Fi surprisingly can actually fatigue you if they're playing Kadachis and they're being very judicious with always going and getting a Phoenix Flame for an extra point of damage. They can actually fatigue you. There are good Bravo players that can pivot early enough after the flip and the reveal of what weapon and equipment you're playing that can play into a fatigue strategy as well. So there are ways around it. I mean, the deck's not as just like a silver bullet for the entire format, but it definitely feels pretty decent from the way I've played it and from what I've experienced into Lexi, particularly because it just blocks 4 very well. So we could see people just pick it up for their national season. And I feel like we kind of got that with Prism as well. Didn't we like have Prism was on that precipice, and then once it crossed, everyone started playing it just to get their last kind of like feelings for it?
Yeah.
I feel like that happened.
We saw that with Prism. I think we saw it
Starvo?
with Chain to a certain extent, maybe, or,
Yeah,
or
maybe.
Starvo. No, we definitely saw it with Starvo, and then Oldham. I believe, because I remember
Yeah, people,
playing against
people still
Oldhams.
played.
You know,
Yeah, people still played it. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
so it's very interesting. We'll see what happens, right? Like this U.S. Nats is a benchmark for maybe what happens the rest of the Nats season. And it should be interesting, but it's also worth noting that we did have a bunch of Lexis in the top 8 of the U.S. Nats, and easily Evan Herndon could have gotten those 100 points for Lexi in the finals. It was very close. It was a great game, but eventually Briar got that 100 points. Only needed 2, but whatever. A little greedy, like most Rune Blades, but
That's true.
now there is no doubt, and I want to ask you this, Steven. There's no doubt that Tales of Aria / the elemental adjacent heroes like Starvo and Icelander, all coming from Aria, there have had a strong presence in the game since their release, right? Leading to Living Legends, bans, suspensions. With the rotation of these heroes, will we see a reset in both the competitive environment of the game and design end of the game? I think we've probably already seen the reset on design,
Right.
coming out of there, but the competitive environment seems.
What do you mean by reset of the competitive environment?
Well, they've always seemed to have shown up, right? I think Fi being really powerful for those couple, moments there was probably the outlier. But since these heroes have been released, they've always been in the mix in one way or another, whether it was Lightning Briar and then Starvo got, gone. And then, we say Oldham, they do some bans and suspensions. Oldham's still there. Icelander's back.
Yep.
Now that, Oldham's gone. And now Briar wins, and Lexi's been running rampant since Outsiders, really. So we've always had them in the mix, compared to like other sets, right? Like Outsiders, we got Azalea and Azuri and Riptide in the mix, and then they kind of fade away. And Uprising, outside of Icelander, who is one of these Arya elemental heroes, we see, I guess Dromai is a good example too, that kind of always in the mix, but that's an illusionist thing in my opinion. But do we see some kind of shift in how the competitive environment shapes out with these heroes leaving?
Well, I mean, so fundamentally, yes, we are going to see the meta shift because they're gone and because, matchups change and heroes that were previously kind of tamped down are now able to rise back up. But I don't know. I feel as though the question is not one of whether or not those heroes were, too powerful or maybe bad for the game in some way, shape, or form. I feel like it actually should shine a mirror on the community
Mm-hmm.
and what we sort of do as a worldwide community with the game. Like, for example, Lexi shows out at Pro Tour 3. And from that point forward, Lexi just hasn't really stepped away. And partially because she's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But there hasn't necessarily been a lot of perhaps unique deck kind of takes on certain heroes or things like that until we had a Fatigue Briar win a tournament. And then you brought up a very good point. Okay, do we start seeing people just kind of net deck that Fatigue Briar and play that and get really good at that? What does that say fundamentally about like what we're doing from the deck building side of things? Does it say that we are, not necessarily giving certain heroes their due diligence until someone comes along and says, look, this can happen if you do this and this, and then everyone goes, oh, okay, so then that's the best deck, so we'll just go play that then. So my thought when you mentioned some of these heroes is like, okay, let's talk about Azuri. Azuri perhaps has fallen by the wayside, but is consistently shown to like be in the top 10, 20, even top 8 in a lot of respects in large major tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, it misses sometimes, but like you look at a lot of the top 8s and there's just an Azuri sitting there. And it's like, why is this here? And then you realize that it's because the hero's good.
Yeah.
But maybe the hero's good and people just aren't investing in it because they think they've already found the good deck and they're just thinking, I'm just going to get really good at the good deck and then I don't have to worry about it. And it could be just an error of everyone flooding to one thing and not necessarily giving the field its due diligence or its fair shake. And I feel like Azuri is a fantastic kind of marker for exactly that because it's really not gone away since Outsiders released. Like Azuri's just shown up and just
Yeah.
been there. And it doesn't maybe always top 8, but then again, it's also like seeing the tiniest margins of play. And what does that say for the hero? Is the hero bad because people aren't playing it? Or is it just a hero that people haven't latched onto? I mean, it reminds me a lot of fighting games. Like there's like, you look at Super Smash Brothers and it's like, okay, here's a character in Super Smash Brothers that people thought was C tier until one person showed up and then played it, and now that's S tier, and it's just always going to be S tier. Oh, it's named Jigglypuff. Okay, cool. That character is now like destroying everything and is on the top of the tier list, right next to Fox and Sheik. And it's like that to me almost is very indicative of what this overall experience and what the community kind of does is it finds the best thing and then wants to become the best at the best thing without perhaps taking the opportunity to iterate on what's already there. And perhaps it's less that we need those heroes to rotate because ice is oppressive and lightning can push a lot of damage or earth really can push a lot of damage and Lexi just fires really good arrows, and perhaps more an opportunity for people to go and really look past the boundaries of where we've set up how a deck should be constructed and try to come up with something different or perhaps even better.
Yeah, no, and you touched on something there that is interesting, right? Like, who's to say, like you said, like who's to say if like Lexi and all these heroes kind of rotate out that everybody flocks to Azuri, and all of a sudden Azuri is all over the place because it was good and it was showing up. It just, like you said, very small amount of players playing it, and then all of a sudden a bunch of players playing it. Who knows? Maybe gets pushed to the top. The cream rises, as they say. It's hard to say. And then there's also something with the community that sometimes people will discount something as a fluke, right?
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely.
for a great example, right? Reinar wins San Jose calling,
Hmm.
right? That's a
It's
big tournament, right?
no, it's a fluke.
Yeah.
That was just lucky. They just got really lucky.
Yeah, you can't tell me that. I mean, like, okay, maybe it happens, but as a brute player, I'm not gonna believe you if you told me no, he just rolled well all day, and I was like, no way, no way. The deck is real, and it won a nationals this past weekend. Like, it's a matter of come on, guys. There are some real potent decks to be played here. So it's very interesting. I just want to see where it goes.
But does it take a specialist to kind of point people to that and make them go, well, the deck is hard? I mean, you look at, like, for example, Mansant on Levia, or, like Majin Bay on Icelander, Rhea Adams on Icelander, these people that have just kind of married themselves to a hero and just played it into the ground. And now they know the ins and outs of that hero to the nth degree, and particularly the deck or the archetype that they're playing. Does it take one of those to kind of change the community mentality, or does everyone sort of write that off as like, okay, I have to be a specialist and I'm not going to take the time to do that. So instead, I'm just going to play the quote unquote best deck? I don't know. It's a really interesting conversation to like look back on and have. And you can obviously, hindsight being 2020, you can always look back and go, oh, well, we should have played this because this was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, who can see that in the moment? Those are the people that really, those are the Charles Dunns of the world that strike while the iron's hot, and get the reward for it.
Right. It's not to relate it back to football, but it's finding, like, if you're a running back, it's finding the hole, right?
Mm,
In
yeah.
the line, right? You get the ball and they're blocking, and sometimes that hole opens, and if a smart player will hit that hole and get a huge gain, that's what Charles Dunn did. He said, you know what, this is the time to play this deck. This is the perfect, and maybe the winner, and I'm sorry I'm blanking on the name. Maybe the winner of the calling San Jose felt the same way about Reinar. It's like, this is the time to play Reinar at this calling and win. So it's hard to say. Now, one last question before we hopefully get to some listener questions, if you have time, Stephen. Uh,
Yeah.
we are now seeing replacements for heroes that get LL'd being printed. Do you think, Briar and possibly Lexi and maybe even Icelander, based on how all close these heroes are to being LL'd, when they get the replacements, are they going to be fixed, for lack of a better term? And of course, Oldham too. We're waiting for that replacement as well, right? Do they revisit these elemental keywords and say, you know what, maybe we put it too far. How can we change that? Do you think, are we going to get a tempered down version of these heroes or classes?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Prism points to that. Look at the way that they've recreated Prism. They've given her a thematic kind of secondary storyline, or I guess a continuation of her storyline, and they have built on the card pool that they've created for her, but in a way that is balanced, and she has to work for it a little bit more. And I feel like that's the exact thing they should do. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense for them to just reprint Oldham the same way that Oldham was, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. And funnily enough, I feel like Oldham is the weirdest of the bunch, because you look at like his effect and his ability, it wasn't necessarily the most game breaking thing. It's not that like you can just, hey, I'm Oldham and I'm going to defense react. And that wasn't like the thing that really pushed him over the edge. It was the fact that he was just the most efficient card pool in the game,
Mm-hmm.
and like had the most efficient equipment in the game. He had the most efficient attacks in the game comparatively, like across the board. And so that's going to be the one that I'm really interested to see how they kind of re-envision and reimagine, because I feel like him functionally, it's not necessarily an ability type thing. It's a card pool scenario. So you may actually have to go and print an Oldhim that has a detriment. I mean, he's so old now he has to like have 3 intellect. Who knows?
Yeah.
Something like that, right? I feel like that's like an interesting way that they could revisit these heroes, and I do think that's exactly what they're going to do. I mean, here's the thing: you could even do a splashier version of the heroes, like Lexi LLs, right? You could do an even splashier version of like you literally just give her a really powerful on hit, but then you give her a detriment or a hamstring that she can't like just immediately do these things for free. And
Hmm.
if you don't have access to Voltaire, maybe you've already built that into the game because Voltaire is incredibly strong and allows her to kind of load up a lot of arrows. So you could build a functionally stronger Starvo esque version of the hero, but not give her all the tools or the card pool that she normally would use to abuse that. And so I think there's really interesting avenues that they could take to design these heroes again. And I want them to. I don't necessarily want them to just release another elemental ranger in place. I want them to release Lexi because even though I'm not necessarily married to playing Lexi, the people who are get so validated and get the opportunity to see their hero again in the flesh and blood on their card, and
Absolutely.
that's what's cool.
Well, and that brings up a great point. I think the reason that they totally could do that with Lexi, and I think I would be surprised if they didn't. But the reason they don't do a new chain is because, well, Eclipse needs you to have built, like, design that hero to be able to do that, right? You can't print a new chain and Eclipse not work, right? I think that would be a failure from a design aspect. But the problem is Eclipse is really good. If you've played, what was it like? I forget off the top of my head. Is it like 6 cards out of your banish zone? You could play Eclipse and get your demon.
Yeah, you bring in Ursa the Soul Reaper.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying, oh, wait, we have to give this hero the capability to play 6 cards from their banish zone to make this card still work, and that's why they did Vincent instead. At least, I mean, that would be my bet. And it's also funny that you mentioned how good Oldhim is, not because of his hero ability, right? There's an argument to be said. You could just print a blank tech box, and he would still be really just one of the
A
best
lot of the
decks.
functionality is just right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like if you change the hero, like what does he lose? Endless Winter, I think that's it, and that wasn't hardly played. It blocked more than it was played in that deck. I
Yeah.
would
Right.
say. So it's hard to say. It'll be interesting to see what the next aria of Visitation will be like, and I
Mm,
think people are going to be very excited about it because a lot of people got into the game when that set came out. Now,
true.
Steven, some listener questions, if you don't mind.
Lay them on me. I'm ready.
I lied. The first one's not a question. It comes from William from the Table Pit. Great UPF channel.
Yeah, it
He's
is.
been on the podcast. No question, but I'd love to play a game of 6-player Yorick where all decks are 6-tuple sleeved.
6-player? Why?
Well, I think on
Why? Because you wanted the
theme.
parody of the 6-sleeve 6 players?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I played a 5-player Yorick deck at Worlds last year, and it was like 1 a.m. when we started.
Oh
And I was like,
no.
this is not going to go well. And it was like 3 a.m. when we finished. I was like, that was way better than I expected. But it was long because people kept like talking about like something. They got up and like went somewhere and then they came back. And I was like, whose turn is it? But no, that was a long game. But if you 6-sleeved a 6-player UPF Yorick deck, I mean, the floor to here, like that's absurd. Nah, man, I don't, not interested in doing. Someone make a video about that though. Someone can make a video about that.
Yeah, it would look like one of those giant Jenga sets you see at a brew
Yes.
pub. Next question comes from the Grave Key, and I do want to apologize to the Grave Key. I was on Instant Speed last week, and we had a question from the Grave Key, and we couldn't see the name, so Flake just said T. It was the Grave Key, for those of you who are wondering. Uh, as a teacher and a content creator, how does one balance both aspects? We did touch on this a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, we did. How do you balance both aspects? Well, it's knowing that you have a finite amount of time, and then deciding in a very meaningful way how you choose to spend that time. And so, and it, for me, it's been lots of conversations with myself, lots of conversations with my family, and just lots of thinking on the subject, and knowing that at the end of the day, the YouTube channel could come and go, but my family really matters. And so I need to make sure that I value everyone's time and my own time and my own sanity. So I place specific boundaries of like when I'm doing things, and I try to stick to and adhere to those. And I only break them in spoiler season. So starting like tomorrow, I have to start working on my spoiler card for this next set.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I
All
saw
right.
it.
Oh,
So
wow. That's very exciting. That's
So
very
anyway, yeah, that's a thing that exists, and it's like those are the only times that I don't really adhere to that, just because I it those things take a lot longer.
sure.
But everything else, I really try to stick to that, very specific time frame of this is when I do this, this is when I go to work, this is when I spend time with my family, and this is when we go do things as a family. I think that is incredibly difficult to do and a little underrated. And I sacrifice a lot of extra things because of that. And that's the biggest thing that I get when people ask me, like, man, I started content creation, but how do you do it? How do you upload all these videos? I'm like, well, what have you given up? What things have you given up? Do you still play video games? Because I hardly do.
Yeah, right.
Do you watch a lot of TV? I watch TV with my wife, and that's about it. And so, are you willing and prepared to give some things up? Because if not, then that's okay. You just understand that the journey of content creation isn't going to look like mine, because I chose to, make different sacrifices than you may want to. And that's okay. But for me, that's how I balance it. Is I'm very specific about how I spend my time, and there are things that I just don't do.
And it's fair. I mean, sacrifices are huge in this content game. Now, the question from Mr. Viz, aka Gary, asks is: as a teacher, do you play games with your students during lunch free periods, or do you keep it separate from the classroom? And if so, for the first part, what games are the kids into these days? Would you say?
No, I don't play games with my students. I don't have time. The way that my schedule functions at work is I teach from first period all the way to sixth period, of which there's an 8 period day. I teach all of those periods with a 30-minute lunch break. And I'm at three different schools through those first 6 periods. So by the time seventh period rolls around, I don't have any kids in my room. I don't have any like off periods. I have the ability to like kind of catch up on email and things. And then eighth period rolls around. I don't have any kids in my room. And so when it's actually time to teach, and for those that don't know, I'm a band director. So I literally stand in front of 48 students every day and I wave my arms around like an idiot, and they perform beautiful music. That is the end goal. And eventually we'll get there. And that is not necessarily conducive to stopping and then sitting down and playing a card game. So for me, there's not an opportunity. If I had that opportunity, would I play card games with my kids? Probably not, because I think the best thing you can do with kids is meet them where they're at. And most kids aren't playing card games, though I would like them to, because I think it's fantastic for their brain development. Most kids are doing other things, so I'll just meet them where they're at. And oftentimes I feel like that's the best way to get to know a kid and build a relationship with a kid is just meet them where they're at.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we got two questions from Crixus, who asks, well, one for you. Is there some aspect of your job as a teacher that has particularly helped you with your journey in content creation and commentary?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Talking to people, I would imagine.
Oh, did he want me to expand on that?
I would
Yeah,
think so.
there is definitely some aspects. No, so I am a performer first and foremost. I studied to be a music teacher, but in doing so, I performed very many, very many times in very many locations, oftentimes taking on a solo and performing said solo in front of an audience or a football field of people. Like that is something that I did growing up through elementary, middle, and high school, and then into college. When I graduated college, before I graduated, I had to give a solo performance, a 30-minute long performance of me and a piano player, and I am performing for an audience. So like I I have learned over the past 2 decades of my life how my body responds under pressure and in a performance scenario. And that is not to say that I do not get nervous. It's just that I know what my body will do when it gets nervous, and because I know that, I know how to respond to it like a very comfortable way in a lot of respects. And so I feel like I have most gained the ability to understand what I'm going to feel and how my body is going to react and my brain is going to react under pressure or in a, a nerve-wracking scenario, and I can roll with those punches. And like you said, I am very good at talking for a living. If you need me to be the host of like a concert or something like that, and you need me to go up and you need me to introduce acts and keep the crowd kind of entertained, I will use a dry sense of humor to make people chuckle awkwardly in darkness because that is what I'm quite good at, is saying something just weird enough that half the people go ha 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 and the other half politely laugh because those other people laughed. So, yes, I am good enough at doing all of those things that I feel like it pays off in content creation. I mean, I could talk about this forever, so I'm just going to cut it there because
That's
otherwise we'll just be going for like 2 hours. But yeah, I feel like my job has, in a lot of cases, in a lot of ways, really prepared me very well, and I'm very lucky to be able to say that for the life of content creation.
for
I
sure.
mean, I could tell you for years why music is so good for you, but
Yeah, no, and I agree. Now, the question for both of us, or either of us, I guess, which one of us has the best odds of winning Worlds? And what hero would you do it on? I don't know. I mean, I'm not qualified and I'm not going, but if I were to go, I think I'd have a decent shot. I don't know if I'd have a better shot than Mr. Cookies over here. And I'll tell you what, I'll tell you who I would take, Steven. I would take Riptide if
I knew
Lexi,
you were gonna say it.
if Lexi didn't, if Lexi doesn't LL before Worlds, I would take Riptide because guess what? I love Riptide into Lexi. I eat Lexis with Riptide. The only problem is Riptide has a lot of bad matchups in the field. So I would just be like, all right, well, I'll just hope. I'll learn Bright Lights Limited really, really well. And
There
then
you
hope
go.
not to run into Dromais and Kanos and Icelanders and just all Lexis. So that would be my bet on Worlds for myself.
See, I think what makes this the most foggy question is that there's a real chance that Lexi doesn't exist at Worlds.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a chance, maybe a little less, but there's a chance that Icelander doesn't exist at Worlds. And so if I wanted to win Worlds, I would probably start right now playing Icelander and just grinding 1,000 games of Icelander. Like that to me feels like the deck that will win you Worlds. Just up, down, left, right, three ways to Sunday. But the problem is I don't know if it's going to be around. So if I'm going to take those two out of the equation, then I have to predict what the meta is going to look like after that. And now I have to do so off of the back of a new set that's going to give full support to mechs. Oh man, that's really tough. Okay,
Yes.
so if I'm gonna assume that those heroes are gone and I had to pick up a hero, I'm gonna say Bravo.
That's a fair pick right there.
He's always a thing. He just
Mm-hmm.
always exists, and like that's just hard to deny, man.
Look to the best blocking hero and then do it. Could be Decimator Dory
Ooh,
or
that'd be kind of cool.
that'd be very cool.
That was the deck that I was building and prepping for before I tried Fatigue Briar.
Ooh, well, maybe we'll see
Decimator Dory.
good DFW calling with Decimator Dory.
Could be. It might be Dromai.
Oh,
Might be Vincent. Maybe Vincent, just for the spice. I don't know.
well, we'll all be excited to see it. Question here from Armor. He has two questions. The first one, I don't know if I want to hear your answer, but he says, do you prefer ranch or blue cheese? You can answer that without any context, and I'll take it.
Sure. I say neither.
Oh, neither.
Yeah, whenever I order wings, I just tell them to leave it off because I'm not going to use it.
Oh,
I feel like
okay.
it's wasteful. But I
Okay.
will take the vegetables on the side because that's like a nice little fresher at the end. But I don't use either of those. I just like a really good buffalo sauce. Like give me a buffalo sauce with like that vinegar kick, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
just want that. I don't want something to cut it. I just
Okay.
give me the normal thing.
Okay. And he also asked,
What were you gonna say? I want to know. What's your
I
take on
I
this?
am a blue cheese only. I'm only blue cheese. Ranch, it makes me physically ill. I don't know why. And I know that sometimes blue cheese is just
Actually physically ill?
not physically ill. It's just like I can't. It just makes me gag. To be honest.
You're revulsed by it.
Yeah. I mean, and
I don't like ranch, so I'm right there with you.
I love blue cheese. I love like that really like sharp kind of cheesy funkiness to it. And I think the reason I have such a visceral reaction to ranch is because so many restaurants just assume you want ranch with your wings or whatever,
Oh yeah, they
and they'll
do.
just give it to you, and you're like, ah. Or even like if you order a salad, like a salad with some buffalo chicken on top or whatever, they're like, oh yeah, we'll just put the ranch in there already. And you're like, oh no, and it's all ruined, and you got to eat it anyway because I'm one of those people. But I don't know. I don't know.
Not a
And I
ranch
love
fan,
blue
yeah.
cheese, but it is it is what it is now. How do you feel, Armor asked, how do you feel Lorcana will be casting wise? From
Oh,
a,
casting wise, huh?
yeah, like, or just commentary in general.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I see that's the thing. The interesting thing about Lorcana is that Lorcana is a game that is really good for families. It's a game that's really fun and really engaging for kids.
Mm-hmm.
My kids came home today. Yesterday, I took them to a Lorcana launch event, and I taught them the game on Saturday. And they came home today from school, and they asked if they could play more Lorcana. Are they great at it? They're okay, but do they enjoy the gameplay of it, the race aspect of it, and the characters that they get to engage in? Yes. And even my wife is that way too. My wife like actively wanted to play along with them while I cooked dinner today. And so from that perspective, it's a fantastic family slash casual game. I don't know how deep they plan on going into commentated organized play events. But if they do, it is a very good game for commentary. How do I know? Because Lorcana is freaking Keyforge, and I'm sick of people telling me at events that it's not. It's Keyforge, okay? Look, the game is functionally the same, minus plus or minus a few things. And you know what was really good in Keyforge? The game, and people could commentate over it. I know because I did it on my channel for like 2 years. So if you want to go check it out, youtube.com/DMArmada, go and search for like all my Keyforge stuff. I literally played the game and commentated over my plays. And it has a lot of nuance. Do I choose to trade this card in? On the board to slow my opponent's progress? Do I choose to try and push my advantage? I only have a slight tenuous advantage, but do I have enough of an advantage to just say, I'm just going to reap across the board and try to win the race? Oh, no, that was a bad decision because they had the one piece that I was playing around in their deck, their control piece. It is a good system for commentary. So if they decide to do commentary and like run events, it will be something that is really cool and functional. And if they ever asked me, I would say yes because I would definitely do that. And I'm already definitely pretty hyped about the game.
There you have it. Now, last question comes from Capolo, who asks if you could pick any caster slash announcer outside of the Flesh and Blood sphere to broadcast the next tournament with you, who would it be? I guess this could be other games. This could be sports
Okay.
commentators.
Oh,
This is a
I
fun one.
100. I've had my answer for this for years, and it is the person that I very much admired and sort of based a lot of my beliefs on commentary around, and that is Sean Day Nine Plot of Hearthstone, StarCraft, and Magic the Gathering fame. That guy is in a lot of cases much of the reason why I started the YouTube channel in the way that I did, and has had a lot of like just below the surface influence on the way that I think about card games or content or commentary in general. And if I could somehow convince that guy to play Flesh and Blood and then commentate a Flesh and Blood tournament, oh man, that would be the coolest thing. That'd be the coolest thing. And I don't know. I don't know him personally, obviously, but I think it's hard not to say that people would enjoy the game of Flesh and Blood because it is so varied with so many decision points and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think that'd be really cool. I would pick Sean Day 9 plot.
That's a great answer. My pick would have been, well, if it was from another card game, it would have been Marshall Sutcliffe, who much like Day 9 inspiring you and changing the way you think about the game. That was Marshall Sutcliffe for me, but other than that, it would have been John Madden. It'd be just funny.
That's a good one.
I just want to hear him nonsense, Brett Favre, just like
that would be a fun listen. That would be a fun listen.
It would be wild. But this has been a great show, Steve, and I'm so happy you agreed to come on. I think we did have a wonderful, wonderful time, like you made me
100%.
promise. And
100%.
I'd like you to plug all of your things, your YouTube channel, your Twitter, your X, or whatever we call it now.
Yeah, I think what is it, X now? I don't know. I'm not following the rules. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Armada_DM because DMArmada was taken by someone out there in the ether. So Armada_DM. We literally, I noticed today while I was on it, hit 3,000 followers on that. That was pretty cool. So that's exciting. But if you want to see the videos that I make and the time that I spend, editing videos and things like that, you go on over to youtube.com/DMArmada. I think we're pretty close to 16,000 subscribers there.
Whoa.
Yeah, look at this. I just updated it. 67 people have to press a red button, and that number goes up from a 5 to a 6. That's pretty cool, right?
That's great. Actually, just so you know, only exactly 67 people listen to this program. Go on over and click subscribe over there for Steven.
I listen to this program in the car driving to and from work.
Oh man, so we're only at 66 going over. Well, I appreciate that.
Dang it, you're right. We gotta find
the math isn't mathing for us today, but thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. You all can continue to find me on X, Twitter, at FreshBudsPod. Subscribe to the YouTube. Check out the Buds Discord. Great place to hang out. What else? Patreon is still in the show notes. It's a great way to support the show. And finally, we always like to talk about food. Last time you came on, you actually introduced a whole new segment that was called Cookies with Cookus. Are there any other cookies that we should be aware of, Stephen?
Okay, so crumble cookies. We all know about crumble cookies at this point. It's sort of like a craze, a thing. Some people say underrated. Some people say overrated. A lot of people say overrated. And I say that they have a really good snickerdoodle that you should check out. They also have released more recently. They have a cinnamon cookie with some frosting on top, like a heavier frosting that I forget what they tinged it with. It was like something delicious, but I would recommend that. I think that they are just right on par with a lot of cookies out there, but definitely worth checking out if you enjoy cookies that are very cakey. If you're a big cakey cookie fan. If you're not that way, then just go with the tried and true Tiff's treats. How do you feel about Tiff's treats?
Tiff's treats. Is Tiff's in the green package, or am I thinking of something else?
No, it's blue. It's very floral, white, and blue. Tiff's treats is really good. It is like the cookie that you imagine when you see a cookie. Okay. It's like, that's a cookie. That's Tiff's treats. That's what you want to go for. So yeah, pick up Tiff's treats if you have one near you. And then of course you have to think about this. So did y'all growing up, did you go to the mall a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I live in New Jersey. It's the mall capital.
There you go. Great American Cookie Company, still going strong. And they still have strong cookies overall.
Interesting. We didn't have the Great American Cookie Factory.
Really?
We had Mrs. Fields. We have a lot of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's interesting. I haven't seen a Mrs. Fields in a while. Great American Cookie Company is popular down here.
Well,
So.
I mean, I think we can all agree cookies are great, and unfortunately, that segment went a little too long. We won't be able to get the Charmer this show, but I think he's
Are
going
you
to come.
sure we could maybe make some extra time for him?
No, I'm pretty tired. Let's be real. You know, we should probably.
All right, yeah,
you're
you're right. We've been going for like at least 20 minutes, so we should probably cut it.
But that's going to do it for the show. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Steve.